All right, let's get into this this story about the tax plan. Just briefly, I mean, this is going to be ongoing. And the tax plan right now, what it is largely hypothetical. The House has passed its bill. You know the basic outlines of this. A doubling of the exemption on estate taxes, and then ultimately a phase out. Huge corporate tax breaks. Also allowing people to take tax breaks on their pass-throughs. And then there's stuff like where in the House bill you get taxed on tuition breaks that you may get at a school, which is just insane to me. Or if you're a teacher, you no longer get deductions for supplies that you spend in your classrooms. There are, they raise some of the tax credits for lower income people and middle income people, but it's basically a big giveaway to rich people. 400 millionaires apparently have said, we don't need tax breaks. Wake me when 400 millionaires write in to say, raise our taxes. Yep. However, 8.3% of taxpayers will pay more in taxes in 2019 and 22% in 2023 under the House bill. And I got news for you. Guess who those taxpayers are going to be? They're coming from the lower end of the income distribution. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
Why are they doing this? Why are they raising taxes? What in the world, aside from being just a general a-hole, why would you actually almost make being a grad student impossible? That's what they're doing. A big chunk of it is being a huge a-hole. The other part of it is they need to try and get to the point where this is deficit neutral beyond 10 years so that they can make these permanent because of Senate rules that we have talked about. I don't know if they're going to get there, but I think they'll take their 10-year. I think they'll take the 10-year tax cuts like they did during the Bush era. There is some concern by conservatives. Well, if you just let companies write off their capital investments for 5 years, it won't spark growth unless this happens forever, because they still believe in this magic Laffer curve thing. Republicans in New York, New Jersey, California, some in Illinois, still are worried about the state and local tax deduction, but everything I've been reading suggests that the Republicans don't seem to care. Now, remember, they've passed the bill, but it's going to go to the Senate, and then it's going to come back. So it's easier to take this vote right now because it's going to come back. It's going to change in conference. And they're doing a whip count in the House tonight. I don't know if they're going to take like some type of, they have people vote on a bill or how they do that. But there have been reports that some of the New York Republicans have not been approached, which suggests that they have the votes they need in the House. The Senate doesn't allow for any deductions, even with a $10,000 threshold, because senators aren't as worried about these things as House members are. So the tax bill will see a vote in the Senate Finance Committee within the next few days. The House plans, I should say, to vote on this by the end of the week, based upon what they see tonight in a test vote. And, then it goes to, once the Senate passes, then it goes to conference. And I think there's going to be I think there's a good chance that this thing is going to pass. the only interesting question is, and there was a New York Times piece about this, they are looking for a model put out by any economist. So if you're out there, this could be an enterprising situation for you. Any economist who can suggest that by cutting taxes, they will actually generate more revenue than they would have with taxes high. This is the Arthur Laffer Kansas tax plan. And they just want somebody who has a model that suggests that it will be there so they can try and sell this to what is the essentially the CBO so that they can make this tax cut permanent in the Senate. So the Times has a story about it because so far their plans to cut taxes by $1.5 trillion over the next decade, they're trying to argue it's not going to add to the debt. Now, remember, it's not terribly relevant, at least in terms of the health of our economy, as to what is added to the debt. This is an accounting error. We've talked about this, or an accounting trick because of modern monetary theory. It matters for two reasons, and we'll get to that in a moment. But the first, we'll get to the second one. The first one is they want to make these tax cuts permanent. They cannot do it because of the Byrd rule in the Senate with 50+1 votes if they can't show that it's deficit neutral. In other words, that it won't add to the debt. So they're going around looking for an economist who will employ dynamic scoring, which suggests that if you cut taxes, it will create economic growth. The economic growth will increase revenue over where it would be on taxes now because of the volume. So many more people are going to be paying taxes because of the huge economic growth that we're going to get, that the number of dollars coming in will actually be larger, even though we've cut taxes. This was the plan in Kansas, of course, and it failed miserably. In fact, it's failed to the extent that it's ever been tried. But it is the mantra that Republicans keep telling themselves so they can cut taxes. We'll get to the second part of this two-step, though, in a minute. As they search for these economists, they found that economists at Goldman Sachs said that they expect tax cuts to generate enough additional growth to offset about a fifth of their revenue losses. So yes, it's true. Tax cuts may create some growth, but not nearly as much as you would be, not nearly as much revenue as you would be if you're just taxing it. And certainly when you give tax cuts to the rich, it spurs growth even less because rich people don't spend that money the way that poor people would. Poor people would go out and spend it immediately. Middle-class people would spend it immediately. We all got checks for $300 during the Bush years. Did you know this? You get that check for $300 and you're worth millions or billions of dollars. Guess what you do with that check? You don't even know that it came. In fact, you'd probably fire the person who came to tell you, like, here, open this envelope. What? There's money inside. You just had me open an envelope to get $300? You're gone. You're fired. You want to see what I'm going to do with this $300? I'm going to make you eat this check. Now, check eating does not contribute to the growth at all, folks, just in case you didn't know.
You're doing class warfare.
But here's the second part of the two-step, right? So they go in and they're going to get a model from some economist they can find at like Princeton or Harvard or Dartmouth or wherever it is that is also going to have a nice cushy job at some type of like right-wing think tank. They're going to come up with a model that gets them really close to it. They're going to hand that over to the parliamentarian to give it to the CBO. They're going to make the argument that this thing is deficit neutral. They're going to try and get permanent tax reform. Even if this is 10 years, they're also going to find a model that's going to suggest that it's much less. 3 years out, it's going to balloon the deficit and then increase the debt. And then the fix the debt people, when Democrats come in, if they come in 2020, are going to show up and they're going to say, we have a deficit and debt crisis. We must act right now and cut Social Security. That's how it's going to go, because that's the way it's went. And maybe we'll have someone like Barack Obama who will accept that premise, try and cut Social Security. Or maybe we'll have someone else who says, you know what, go F yourselves. Too bad, maybe somebody will run, maybe a Democratic Party nominee will run on a lockbox. That would be nice. But that's where we are now. We're going to have a whip count tonight in the House. We're going to have a vote in the House later in the week. I may have misspoken earlier and said that the vote had already taken. It's going to happen later in the week. Also later in the week, we're going to see the Senate Finance Committee. So we'll have a sense of actually what the bill is, at least going into conference. I mean, the Republicans are and here's the other thing to watch out for. They're going to pass something. And the conventional wisdom, the Beltway media, the mainstream media, the corporate media, whatever you want to call it, is going to say this is going to really help the Republicans in their reelection because they've done something. And I will tell you right now, it will ensure that they will get their donations from their donors. But frankly, no one's going to give a crap. It's not going to implicate the 2018. They're going to go out there and say we did tax cuts, and it's going to be a liability. When people figure out that there is no such thing as, there's no such thing as the death tax. And if you want to be accurate with the estate tax, you call it the wealthy estate tax, the extremely rich estate tax, the more money than 90% of you, at least 95, 98, I'm misspeaking. I don't know what it is, but if it was today, it would be more money than 99.8% of you have in your estate tax.
It will help them keep campaign contributions going in. And
Period.
That's why they
and they've said that.
And they've said that
They've
publicly.
been explicit about it.
And it's amazing. I forget who it was, but I watched. It was like some Don Lemon segment on CNN a couple weeks ago. I was on a plane, and this analyst that they had on, she was saying, they were showing that Trump's numbers amongst his base have dipped modestly, very modestly. But that, of course, is a CNN segment. And she's like, well, they're upset that he hasn't done tax reform.
That's just so
Isn't that incredible?
Unbelievable. Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos